Welcome to week 2's contact session for EDCA 411. I hope that you are doing well and that this week has been treating you okay thus far and that you are starting to get back into going to class and studying and so on, because after such a long break, usually it can be quite difficult to just get into stuff again. Okay, so by means of our action in our teams, please send me a little heart if your week is great and you feel awesome. If you feel okay and you feel that you are coping, react with a smiley or a thumbs up. And if this week is a bit rough on you, react with a surprised little face, a surprised face. I have a few surprised faces. I have a few thumbs up. There's a couple of hearts. Okay, some of you are happy, some of you are struggling. I hope that if you are struggling, you will get sorted soon and get assistance where needed, and also will just be able to cope in general. Okay, so yeah, for me on my side, also the week and a half has been quite rough. This week is much calmer than last week, but there's still a lot of stuff to sort out. We are still registering students. There's a little bit of issues with the communication between the registration platform and Ifundi. So some students also struggle to get loaded, the Ifundi sites and so on, but we are handling it and I hope that we will get everything sorted soon. Okay, so let's get started. Last week, we discussed the legal system a little bit. We spoke about what does it mean when we say education law, what is the meaning of education law, what does legal mean, what does it mean if we say we are asking legal questions or making legal arguments, what are the sources of law, where do we find the information when we're looking for a legal answer or answer to a legal question. So this week, I'm going to start off with a little bit of a recap through a Menti. So please join the Menti. In the meantime, we are also going to use today our Introduction to Education Law. I'm going to refer to it and you can use it, but mostly today we are working with the law itself. And then I hope that you have your 6 bricks. If you do not have 6 bricks, you can use any other 6 items, a red, an orange, a yellow, a light blue, a dark blue, and a green if you have. So see if you can find 6 items if you don't have the 6 bricks. Or alternatively, you can draw yourself a little picture of the 6 bricks with the different colors, or you can quickly create one on your phone or on your computer using AI. Just ask them to create you a little picture of 6 Lego bricks, red, orange, yellow, light blue, dark blue, and green. So we will be using that. Please join the Menti. You can scan the QR code, or you can click on the link in the WhatsApp group, or you can go in your browser to www.menti.com and enter the code 14041181. Okay, see 41 has joined and we are 61 in the meeting. I'm going to ask a couple of questions to jog your memory, to see what you remember from last week. Some of these questions are multiple choice, some of them are open-ended. Please be quick about answering them as quickly as you can so that we don't waste too much time. Hopefully, we can get the questions done within the first half an hour, and then we're going to spend the second hour on working with the law, citing from the law, using our 6 bricks. Okay. Which of the following best describes education law? Is it a set of legal rules governing education? Is it a field of study on the relationship between law and education, or is it both of them? Okay, 58 has voted out of 53. So let's just give it another second or two. Still people getting into the meeting. Guys, please next time try to be joining a little bit earlier so that we don't still join 15 or 10 minutes into the meeting. Okay, so if you said both of the above, you were absolutely 100% correct. Although technically, each of these is also correct. But in this module, we will refer to education law as both of these things. When we use capital letters, usually we mean a field of study. And when we use small letters, usually we mean just a body of law. All right, let's see the next one. Most of you got the first question, right? So now I want to hear from you if you can remember what does the word legal refer to, but in the specific context of when I say a legal issue or a legal question or a legal argument. What is the meaning of legal in that specific context? So you can type. Mukari asked on the WhatsApp group for the code. Are you referring to the Menti code or to the meeting? Oh, if she's not in the meeting, she won't know. Won't hear me. Okay, so Menti code is at the top of the screen, 14041181. Okay, acceptable before the eyes of the law. According to the law, legal refers to something related to the law, rights, rules, or issues that are governed by legislation or legal principles. Anything related to the law set by the government. It is acceptable in terms of the law. Anything that is in alignment with the law. Anything related to the law, related to the law, related to the law, according to the law. Permitted and allowed, law-related. Conflicts or disagreements. Legal means something that is allowed by the law, something related to the law, relates to the law, accepted or aligned with the law, abiding to the law, sets of laws or rules that should be followed, relating to the law, acceptable. Okay, so what I see is that there are two different definitions from your side, mostly. When we say legal in the context of a legal issue or a legal question, we refer to something related to the law, rights, rules, or issues that are governed by legislation or legal principles as set out by government. So that is the definition we use, or that is what we mean when we use legal in the context of a legal issue, a legal question, a legal argument. Whereas if we say legal in the sense of it is a lawful action or lawful conduct, then we mean it is according to the law or in alignment with the law or adheres to the law or within what is permitted by the law. Okay, so remember to distinguish between those two meanings of the word legal. For today, we are working with legal questions and we are going to work with the law to see and learn how do we answer legal questions and how do we write down the reference to our answers or to where we are answering the questions from. Okay, so which of the following then is a legal question? Is it, does the learner live with their grandparent? Is it, may a learner's grandparent vote in the SGB election? Or is it, why does the grandparent bring the child to school? Which of those is a legal question? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of dots under does the learner live with the grandparent? I see a lot of dots under may a learner's grandparent vote in the SGB election. I see why does the grandparent bring the child to school? Oh, shame, getting only one dot so far. Ah, 2 dots. Shame. Okay. We are closely to everyone having voted. We have 52 votes out of 63. All right. So if you voted for may a learner's grandparent vote in the SGB election, you were correct. This is a legal question because whether or not the grandparent may vote is something that we will find the answer to in the law. The question, does the learner live with their parent? This is a question that the law cannot answer for us. The law does not have eyes to see in real life whether or not the learner lives with their grandparent or with a parent or with somebody else. So this one, the first one with the blue dots, would be an empirical question and not a legal question. And the same goes for why does the grandparent bring the child to school? We cannot know that by consulting the law. The law is mostly documents. A document doesn't have the ability to know why someone does something. So who does what happened, or why did someone do something? Those questions are not legal questions. They are empirical questions for which we need data or information from actual real life before we are able to answer those questions. Okay, so well done to all of those who voted for the orange dots. Okay, so now I want you to formulate a question, a legal question, based on your TPRAC experience at school. So think back to your TPRAC from last year or any other time, and think of a question that you would like to ask, something that you can ask from the law, and formulate a legal question. You can type your legal question there in the Menti. If you are struggling to participate in the Menti, you can type your question in the meeting chat. Now I have one question. I have 3 questions. Four questions. Okay, at least now we have 25 questions. 27. I'll wait a little bit for you to just submit your questions. Okay, so while others are still typing, let us start to have a look at these questions. So we have, is a teacher allowed to discipline a learner? That is a perfect legal question. What are the boundaries of emotional support that a teacher is ethically allowed to provide to learners? Very interesting question. And yes, it would be a legal question. Can a teacher help learners from their own pockets? When we ask a question with can, it could say, well, can you? Meaning, are you able to? Whereas for a more legal formulation, I would use the word may, or are they allowed, or are they required, even if you want to know whether they are required. So I would replace the word can with the word may to make it a fully legal question. Is it legal for a school to suspend a learner without giving them a hearing? Definitely a legal question. Can a school manage their grade 8 intake according to race or gender? So again, I would replace the word can with the word may and say, may a school manage their grade 8 intake according to race or gender, to make sure that it's a legal question and not just the question of, are they able to do it? Because yes, perhaps they are able to do it, but they might not be allowed to do it. What rights do learners have at a school? Definitely a legal question. Do the law protect teachers or only learners? Very good legal question. Is the school legally responsible if a learner is injured during a supervised practical activity? Definitely a very good legal question. What are the legal boundaries for disciplining learners during teaching practice? Very good, very interesting question, and definitely a legal question. Oopsie, I think I skipped one. What do you do when you know of a child being abused at home? Okay, so again, in this case, we can say, what do you do when this and this happens? And we might answer that question from different perspectives. So we might answer the question from a psychological perspective, from a sociological perspective, maybe from a pedagogical perspective, maybe from a school management perspective. But from a legal perspective, we would rather use the words, what are you required to do, or what are you allowed to do, or what may you do, or what actions should you take or must you take. What is expected, or what actions are you expected to take? Wording like that, so that we can clearly distinguish between we want to answer specifically from the law and not just in general from different approaches. When does a school's disciplinary action become unlawful or procedurally unfair? Good, legal question. To what extent must a teacher go with disciplining a disruptive learner? To what extent must a teacher go with disciplining a disruptive learner? This is an interesting phrasing. Yes, I would say that it is a legal question, but it could also be a non-legal question. So maybe we should say, to what extent are a teacher allowed to discipline a disruptive learner, or maybe what measures are a teacher allowed to take to discipline a disruptive learner? Can a public school legally suspend a learner for refusing to stand during the national anthem? Oh, that's an interesting question. And yes, because you say legally suspend, it makes it a legal question, even though you started with can and not may. Does the learner have to do homework? Do they? I don't know. Do they have to do homework? How do we decide? How do we answer that? We can answer that question from a pedagogical perspective, we can answer it from a psychological perspective, we can answer it from a family-orientated perspective. There's many ways to answer the question. So to make it a legal question, I would say, is the learner legally required to do homework in a specific context? And I think it would depend on the context also. So yeah, a little bit of a more complex question to ask, but it could be a legal question with slight tweaking. What procedures are followed before a learner is suspended? Again, I would say what procedures must be followed to make it definitely a legal question, because all followed could also be an empirical question. What do the school typically do, which the law won't know? The law only knows what they should typically do. Oh, okay. And next one, how can we regulate discipline in a school under the law? Legal question, definitely. Is this lawful? Is it lawful to confiscate a learner's cell phone permanently? Legal question, yes. Can a learner be suspended or expelled without a hearing? Definitely a legal question. Is a student teacher allowed to shout at a learner? Legal question. Should learners take the school textbooks with them when going home? This could also be pedagogical. But to make it legal, I would say, are learners allowed to? Maybe. Can a teacher record incorrect marks for a learner as part of punishment? Wow. Okay, again, can they? They may be able to do it, but should they? Are they allowed to? May they do it? I don't think so. So I would rather say, to make it a legal question, let's replace can with may. Is the teacher allowed to discipline learners? Legal question. What legal duty does a school have to protect student teachers during their practical placement? Very good, very interesting. Definitely a legal question. Did the school take reasonable steps to prevent and address bullying that affected the learner's development? So this one is an example of an empirical question. So this is not a legal question. This is an empirical question where we are asking, what did the school do? So again, remember, when we ask a question about who did what, it's definitely not a legal question, because the law doesn't know who did what. The law only knows who should do what. Okay. Upset. Can a teacher help learners at his or her home? May they? So to make it a legal question, just replace can with may. How does a teacher react to a learner who is disrespectful? Maybe how may the teacher react to a learner who is disrespectful? Or maybe what responses are the teacher allowed? Or what are the legally, or what would lawful responses be, or what would lawful actions be to take when a learner is respectful? Because how does could also be how do you do it? What do you do? Which is not a legal question. But it can be a legal question. Just to make it definitely legal, just tweak it slightly. Is the teacher allowed to send a learner out of the classroom as punishment? Definitely a legal question. Are learners allowed to buy their stationery at school? That's a legal question. Are educators permitted to suspend learners without any further consultations? Yes, I think that's a legal question. Interesting question, yeah. Does the school have the legal right to search a learner's private belongings without the consent of the parents? Very good legal question. Should learners be able to ask the teachers for guidance when they don't understand a certain topic? Should they be able to? They should be able to. Could be legal, and it could also be maybe pedagogical and even psychological. Yeah, I think it would be both. All three of those could answer this question. But to make it definitely legal, maybe we can ask, are teachers required to provide guidance to learners when they don't understand a certain topic? Maybe that would be, just make it a little bit definitely more legal. What legal steps must the school follow before suspending or expelling a learner? Good legal question. Are teachers allowed to use any form of corporal punishment even though it is banned? Legal question indeed. Can a teacher be involved in a learner's family issues? Can they? They might be able to, but for a legal question, we would rather ask, may they? When can a teacher report suspected abuse? When can they? Yes, the law might be able to answer this question for us. I think that's a legal question. Is the teacher allowed? Would be a legal question. Is the teacher allowed? Yes, legal question. Is the school legally liable? Definitely legal question. Are the teachers allowed? Legal question. If a teacher is permitted, is a teacher permitted to live with learners from poor social background? What an interesting question. To live with learners from a poor social background. Okay. Yes, permitted, legal question. Can a public school legally refuse to admit a learner due to unpaid? Legal question. To what extent is a teacher allowed to discipline a learner? Yes, legal question. Is a teacher allowed? Legal question. Can we do corporal punishment? Why does Bila Act favor only learners? Can we do corporal punishment? Can we administer corporal? May we administer corporal punishment? Maybe we can. We might be able to, but may we? No, we may not. And why does the Bila Act favor only learners? I don't think that's necessarily a legal question. A better legal question would be, does the Bila Act favor learners over, and then indicate over what? do you think the Bill Act favors, or do you want to investigate whether the Bill Act favors learners over, I don't know what, over other learners or over parents or over teachers or over discipline and order or whatever the case might be? That would be a better way to phrase that as a legal question. Can the school be held liable? A question like that is always a legal question. Is the school act unlawful by installing cameras in the classroom without obtaining proper consent or considering learners' right to privacy? Very interesting question. Side note, privacy in a public space does not count the same way as privacy at home. But yes, this would be a legal question. What are the legal responsibilities of a school when a learner is injured? Legal question, yes. Are teachers allowed to address? Legal question, yes. Is the teacher liable? It's legal question, yes. What right does teachers have at a school? Legal question, definitely. Are you aware of your child's right to safe and fair treatment? This would be an empirical question, because are you aware? The law doesn't know whether you are aware or not. The law only knows what the rights are, not whether or not you are aware of those rights. So that would not be a legal question. That would be an empirical question. Held liable is a legal question. To what extent are the teacher allowed? Legal question, yes. What must they do to discipline? Must, legal question. Parental consent, legally required, legal question. Okay, we went through all of them, it seems. So let's then go to the next one. And I'm going to now ask you to name one key source of education law. Keep your eye on the screen. See if you can name something different from what you see on the screen. So if you see something on the screen pop up, try to think of something different. Don't look in your books. Don't ask ChatGPT. Just tell me straight up the first thing that comes to your mind. See if you can remember a source of education law. So when I say sources of law, I'm referring to where we get the information to answer our legal questions. So we're going to ask legal questions. Where do we go to find the answers to our legal questions? So that would be sources of law. And specifically, I want you to mention forms of law. Okay, so I'm seeing legislation. Yes, legislation is a form of law. I'm seeing constitutional law, or maybe the Constitution. Both of them would be correct. They refer to a form of law. Right to basic education would be one right that appears in a form of law, namely the Constitution, I would say. The legislation document or documents, because we have multiple legislative documents. To protect the teacher is not really a source of law. To protect teachers and learners, this sounds more like an intent or a purpose or something like that, or an objective even. Department of Education is also not a source of law. The Department of Education is part of government, giving us the law and implementing the law at the same time. So no, that would not count as a form of law. CIAS will count as a form of law. Right to basic education is one provision in the Constitution. The SAYS Act, yes. Case law, yes. School policies and regulations, yes. Children's Act, yes. South African Schools Act, yes. SAYS itself, no. SAYS is not a form of law. SAYS is a body, just as the Department of Education is a body. Legislation, case law, Bill Act, yes. Common law, yes. Regulations and policies, yes. Policy documents, yes. Disciplinary law, I'm not sure what that would refer to. Statutory law, yes, it's the same as legislation. Let's see if there's something that wasn't mentioned yet. Okay, it seems that you have mentioned the same things. So there were also international law, which you could have mentioned. You could have also mentioned customary law, and you could have also mentioned foreign law, but those we don't work with much in this module. So I think the ones that we are working with, you definitely remembered correctly. So well done. Just remember that SAIS and the Department of Education, they do not count as forms of law. They are bodies of government. Okay, so which of these do you think is not a source of education law? Is it a published court case? Is it an article written by a legal scholar? Is it regulations issued by the DBE, or is it the Poppy Act? Just about half of the votes are in. If you said an article written by a legal scholar, you were correct. A court case is case law, so that is a form of law or a source of education law. Regulations issued by the Department of Education is also a source of law, that is a form of legislation. And the Poppy Act is also a form of legislation and therefore also a source of education law. So you were correct if you chose the article written by a legal scholar, which is academic work. It is not a form of law. Okay, I'm going to skip this one for now. Which of the following is not an example of subordinate legislation? So you would remember, or I hope that you remember, that there's a way to distinguish when it's original legislation and when it is subordinate legislation. So which of these, Code of Conduct for Learners, the South African Schools Act, the Regulations for Safety Measures at Schools, which of them is not an example of subordinate legislation? Okay, just over half of the votes are in. And there's a very obvious favorite. Very correctly so. Most of you have chosen the South African Schools Act, which is correct, because the word act in the title tells us that it is original legislation and therefore not subordinate legislation. So well done on that. Then last week, we also spoke about the hierarchy of legislation. There's some of the documents that would have more authority and other documents have less authority, meaning that they are not allowed to contradict the documents higher up in the authority. So on your screen, you have 5 different sources. Please rank them in terms of which ones have the most authority. So you would give that one a 10, and which ones have the least authority, and then place them in the correct order according to their levels of authority. Okay, so far, the Constitution is at the top, which is very accurate. The Constitution is the supreme law, so therefore it should be at the top. It has the highest authority. After the Schools Act, though, comes original national legislation. So which one of these would be original national legislation? That would be the South African Schools Act. So the South African Schools Act should then be second, just underneath the Constitution. Then we have national regulations. Then after that, we would have provincial legislation, which would then be the Gauteng Schools Act. And at the very bottom should be the Code of Conduct for Learners, because the Code of Conduct for Learners is only for a specific school and is not allowed to be in contradiction of any of the other sources that I have listed there. Okay, so yes, Constitution is correct, but the others need to change a little bit. It should be Constitution number 1, Schools Act number 2, National Regulations number 3, Gauteng Schools Act number 5, number 4, and Code of Conduct for Learners number 5. Okay, so we spoke about the pillars of, or the branches of, or the arms of government. I'm going to skip this quiz in the interest of time. And we are now going to start to work with the legislation itself. And starting this week, also including next week and the week after that, so week 2, 3, and 4, we are going to use our Lego 6 bricks and we are going to use our legislative documents. We are going to, first of all, see how to find them online, how to evaluate online whether they are authoritative or not, should we use them or are they outdated. We are going to look at the structure of legal documents and how to read them and interpret them. We are going to learn by using our blocks how to accurately reference the legal documents, the section numbers, also how to interpret and apply them to scenarios in education. So that's what we're going to do starting from today. So I'm going to scaffold it. First of all, for today, we are starting with only 3 blocks. So we are first going to go online, look at the documents online. Then we are going to look at the structure of document. And then we are going to use our first 3 blocks, the red, the orange, and the yellow, to reference acts. We are not working with subordinate legislation today. We will do that next week. Today, we are only going to work with acts, original legislation, using our first 3 blocks of the 6 bricks. So I'm just going to go out there and show you. So first, let me see by means of your reactions, if you tried to find the legislation online and you really struggled, please show me by means of reaction in the Teams a surprised face. If you went online, tried to find the legislation and you managed to find it, give me a little heart in your reactions. Okay, there's a couple of surprised faces. There's not too many reactions. I'm concerned that maybe some of you did not go online and try to get it. Okay, now there's some reactions coming through. Okay, it seems that there's a little bit more on the struggle side than on the yes, I've got this side. Okay, I don't want you to be disheartened about it. And what I want to say to you is, remember, when we learn a new skill, learning something new means it's going to be difficult at first. If it's not difficult at first, there isn't much value in learning it. Not always, but mostly if you learn a new skill, it's going to be challenging at first. We rarely ever get something right the very first time. Don't lose heart. Don't give up. Try and try and try again. This is an important skill for you in your professional life as a teacher. You will need to do this for the entire of your career. So it's really important that you are able to master the skill of finding a legal document online and knowing how to read it and interpret it and apply it, and also how to legally cite it. And I want to to compare the skills that we are doing this week and next week and the fourth week of the semester to learning to walk on a tightrope, something maybe you've never done, and now you want to start learning walk on a tightrope. So at the beginning, you are going to struggle. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging. You might fall off. You might not get it right. But with practice, repetition, 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 after some while, you are going to get it right. And then after a long while and lots of practice, it will come naturally to you. So this is the same. You are learning new skills. So don't stress about it if it's challenging or difficult. We are going slowly. We are going to scaffold the different skills. I'm going to go through it with you today so that you can learn how to navigate these things. Okay, so when I gave you the list of documents, I gave you I referred you to specifically to two different sites. So the first one I referred to was South African Legal Information Institute, or SAFLI for short. So SAFLI is really my destination of choice. I love SAFLI. It's free. It's open access. They update their documents regularly. There's all of our legal documents are available here. And also they have some scholars, work from scholars like chapters and papers and articles is also there. So it's really, and all the court cases, or not all the court, but many court cases are also available on SAFLI. So SAFLI is really a good place for you to go find legal sources. A note about SAFLI though is you need to have the title of the document. So you won't find something easily on SAFLI if you don't have the correct title. So let's say we want to look for the South African Schools Act. We have the title, we know the title. So we say South African Schools Act. And there you will see at the very top, it gives us 100% match South African Schools Act 1996. So let's click on that link. And then you can see there it says South African Schools Act. So we want to know whether this act is up to date, the document in front of us now. Is this document up to date? How do we know? We need to fall back on our knowledge. So in our knowledge, we are aware, because we keep our ears on the ground as professionals, we are aware that there has been a BILA Act, and the most recent one in 2024, which means we want a document that has been updated with the most recent BILA Act, namely December 2024. So I am going to check. So SAFLI makes it easy for us. They give us a little note that says updated to 24 December 2024. Nice, easy. Okay, but what if that little note was not there? We would scroll down and we would check the list of amendment acts that was included in this consolidated document. So we want to see, did this document incorporate the changes brought about by the 2024 BILA Act? And then we can check when we see, okay, Education Laws Amendment Act 1997, 1999, 2000, 2001, 2004, 2006, 2007, 2011, 2024. And when we see that, we are happy. This document is up to date and we can comfortably and confidently use this document. So you can use the document straight online. You don't need to download it, in which case it will use less data. However, the formatting you will see as I scroll through can be a little bit weird to deal with. So it's better for us to just go back and download a copy. And I prefer the option of the PDF. So I would then download PDF copy of the Schools Act, and it will open for us very nicely. And there it is. Excuse me. The second address that I recommended to you was the National Department of Basic Education's website. So this website is a very good place for you as a teacher to go to every so often. They have a lot of information, notices, news, guidelines, booklets, other material that you can use. There's a lot of material for teachers on the Department of Basic Education's website. A very good place for you. Nice resources for you as a teacher. For us now in education law, we are interested in the resources in the form of legislation. So you can see there, we have legislation. And among legislation, we have acts, we have call for comments, we have government notices, we have green papers, we have regulations, we have white papers. I want you guys to play around on the site. Go to each of these little tabs and see what it is that is there so that you can get to know what does a white paper look like? What does a regulation look like? What does a green paper look like? What are the government notices? How do we deal with a call for comments? And what acts are there that the Department of Basic Education think is relevant for us to know or to take note of? So for now, let us go to acts because we are looking for South African Schools Act. Okay, so there it gives us the acts that the Department of Education has given us in a nice list. So if you want a document and you don't know the name of it or you don't know which documents are relevant, you come here, not to Safli. Going to Safli, you need the name of the document. So if you find a document here and it hasn't been updated, then you go to Safli, type the name of the document there, and Safli will most probably give you a more updated version. The Department of Basic Education is a little bit slower in their updates than Safli. But nevertheless, in this case, we can see on 24 December 2025, the department did upload for us the South African Schools Act, 84 of 1996, and they even give us a little note to say, as amended by the BILA Act 32 of 2024, which means, yes, this is what we want. So we can go ahead and open the document. You can download it or you can just open it. Okay, so I now have this document from the Department of Education website. And again, there's a little note that says this act has been updated to 24 December 2024. So I'm happy. I can also double check as amended by, or let me just make it a little bit bigger for you, sorry. So we can see as amended by, and again, all of the amendment acts must be listed. And the most recent one, we are interested in 2024, and we can see, yes, indeed, this copy, this document in front of me is updated. Okay, so I can choose to use this one, or I can use the one from Safli. They look slightly different in terms of formatting, but the content is the same. So you can choose any one. It really doesn't make a difference. What you do need to be aware of is that if you are looking for a document and you see that it does not have all the updates under where the amendment acts are listed, then you need to find a different version so that you don't waste time with a document that might be outdated. Okay, then I want to show you what happens when I go to ChatGPT and I ask, where can I find, oh, what's going on? Okay, where can I find an updated, consolidated version of the South African Schools Act? Oopsie, I must type, but okay, it will correct. It's not Safli, it's chat. Chat knows what you want to say most of the time. Okay, and then ChatGPT gives me some links. Great. So AI obviously is a very, very helpful tool. It's a great assistant, and we can use it. There's no reason not to use it in this way. I mean, you're not. Please don't use it for generating content, but in this way, this is a nice way to use it. So if you don't want to go and search, you can just see here. Even if you didn't know when the latest BILA Act was, you can say, when was the latest BILA Act in South Africa promulgated? And it can tell you the date, and it will even give you some links so that you can go and double check the sources. I mean, obviously, if it gives you a link and the source is a little bit dodgy, don't believe it. But in this case, it's the government, so we can trust it. Okay, so let's go to the links. So you will see that there we have Basic Education, official source, Government Gazette, legal test, there's Schools Act, and they refer us to the Government of South Africa site. So this is this site, Government, South African Government. So on this site, they also have documents here, and part of documents is Act. So you can click there and it will give you all the acts in South Africa, and you can search for the Schools Act. But I'm not going to waste your time. I'm already going to tell you that the Act on this page is not being updated. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this tab because that tab is not useful to me. And then let us see what else we get. So let me just say, so I think because I mistyped in my first prompt, it didn't give me the correct information. Okay, official consolidated Department of Basic Education. So there, this link takes me to the Department of Basic Education, and it takes me straight to the Schools Act. We have seen this document. It has been updated, so we are happy with that one. We can also see that it refers us to SAFLI. So yes, we have seen SAFLI. We've been there. The link from ChatGPT takes me straight to the Schools Act. We have been here, we've seen this, we know that it is updated, and we are happy. And again, it gives us also a law library link, which usually is a subscription service. And then if you are Afrikaans, you can also ask, you can ask in Afrikaans. If you don't ask in Afrikaans, it will give you, it will just take you to the English version of the Schools Act. So it tells me that we can find it on SAFLI. Let's check if that is true. No, this is an English version, so no, it's lying. Suid-Afrikaanse Skolewet. It takes me to Acts Online. Acts Online is a subscription, so I don't want to go there because I don't want to pay for it. SA News. So this time I was not successful in getting what I wanted. Oops, wrong spelling. I just want to see because in my previous attempts, it did give me a link, but when I put the link in my browser, I couldn't get it, but I could get it from ChatGPT. But okay, so today I'm not successful. Maybe if I log in, I will be. But just to show you that you can use chat, you can ask questions, but you have to have your knowledge to fall back on to evaluate the sources that ChatGPT will give you. Okay, let's go back to the Act. I'm going to close the one from the Department of Education because I just have a preference for the one from SAFRI. I'm used to it. Okay, so there is your Schools Act. Now, in your textbook, in Introduction to Education Law, on page 9, from page 9 onward for a couple of pages is an entire copy of the National Education Policy Act with little text bubbles and arrows to the different elements of the National Education Policy Act. So all acts have the same elements. So I'm going to go through the South African Schools Act with you, show you the elements, how to read them, how to understand and interpret them. It will be the same, whether it's Employment of Educators Act, whether it's National Education Policy Act, whether it's the Children's Act, whether it's the Promotion of Equality Act. The elements are the same, and the way we work with this document will be the same as we work with any of the other legislative documents. Okay, so let's jump into it. Okay, so first of all, we have a title. I'm going to refer to the name of the act and then use a red block. When we are going to write to answer legal questions, I'm going to say red block. If I say red block, we are referring to the name of the act. In this case, it is South African Schools Act. And then also every act has a number and a year, and I'm going to use the orange block of the 6 bricks for the number and the year, which is in this case 84 of 1996. The two of them together, this whole phrase that I'm going to highlight now, is South African Schools Act 84 of 1996. And this whole little thing together is what we call the short title of the Act. So this is the short title of the Act, which includes the South African Schools Act, the name, my red block, a number and a year, my orange block. Okay, then if we scroll down a little bit, you will see English text signed by the president. This is important when there's a little bit of a discrepancy between the English version and any other version, Zulu, Tswana, Afrikaans, whatever. If there's a little bit of a discrepancy, we fall back onto the one that was signed by the president. It has the final authority. We can also see that this act was assented to on 6 November 1996, which means that is the date that Parliament voted on this act, voted this act in power, promulgated this act. And then they will give the Department of Education and people a little bit of time to just adjust, prepare, and take note. And therefore, the commencement date is a little bit later than the assented date. And in this case, it was 1 January 1997. We also have information of which government gazette and the date the first original version of the Schools Act was published in. But now we have the original version in this government gazette, and then after that we have many Bila Acts that was published, and the document in front of me has incorporated all of them into the original document. So I'm not working with the document as it was on 15 November 1996. I'm working with the document as it is now after all these changes brought about by the different Bila Acts. Then underneath all the list of the amendment acts that I've shown you already, there's a little paragraph. It is usually in bold. It has the heading Act, and this is what we call the long title of the Act. So the long title of the Act gives us the purpose of this Act. In this case, the purpose of the Act is to provide for a uniform system for the organization, governance, and funding of schools, to amend and repeal certain laws relating to schools, and to provide for matters connected therewith. So this is the purpose of the Act. Why do I need to know the purpose of the Act? The purpose of the Act helps me when I have a legal question. Let's say I have the legal question, what steps can the school take when we suspect a learner has brought drugs to school? Okay, that's my legal question. So I now don't want to waste my time to read all of the different acts that is available because it's going to take me a lot of time. I want to go straight to the document that will be most relevant to my legal question and where I will most probably find my answer quickly and easily. So in this case, my question relates to learners and school because it's about the learner bringing drugs to school. In my long title, I will read about the Act, and I will see this one is all about the school system, organization, governance, and funding of schools. So yes, I will most probably find my answer in this Act. But if I have a different legal question that maybe relates to the employment of educators. So maybe I want to know if an educator can be dismissed on grounds of not coming to work for 2 weeks, for example. Now, because I have some legal knowledge, which you will have at the end of this module, I know that it will probably be the Employment of Educators Act. But just to be sure, I want to look at the long title of the Employment of Educators Act to see if discharge of educators will be dealt with in this act. So I'm going to scroll down to the long title. Where is the long title? Oh, there it is. Long title: to provide for the employment of educators by the state, for the regulation of the conditions of service, the discipline, the retirement, and the discharge of educators, and for matters connected therewith. So if I have a legal question that relates to this, the long title will give me a clue as to whether or not I can find the answer in this document. Then there are also clues about how to interpret what I read in this document. The preamble gives us the spirit of the act. What were the thoughts, the intentions, the debates, or the issues on the minds of Parliament when they enacted this act? And that is explained to us in the preamble. And we cannot go and apply the law in a way that is contradictory to the spirit of the law. So we need to take note of what the spirit of the law is. After this, in this document, we have a table of content. Each act is divided into chapters. So the different chapters are structured around specific topics or themes. So we have definitions, applications, we have learners, we have public schools, we have finance of schools, funding, we have independent schools, and so on. So the chapter headings further gives us some clues when we are looking for the answer to a legal question. So now I don't want to read the entire Schools Act to know whether a grandparent may vote in the SGB election. I just want to read the chapter that will be relevant to my answer. So in terms of that, I will go and look for public schools because SGBs and SGB elections are in public schools. It's a way of governing public schools, and I will most probably go and read this section to find my answer. I'm not going to read the entire act. Then as I scroll down, every act has a list of definitions in its very first section. So section 1, definitions, explains to us in this act, there are certain words that are used with a specific meaning attached to them, and that specific meaning is defined. If a word is not in the list of definitions, it means it's a normal meaning, the way we speech in our normal everyday speech. But if it's defined here, it means that it might be different from what our normal everyday understanding of a word is. So, or maybe different from other sources and even other law. So basic education, for example, is defined differently in the Schools Act than in international law. And it says grade R to grade 12 as in the National Curriculum Statement. So for us, it's important to take note of the list of definitions and know that in the Schools Act, when the Schools Act uses the word basic education, it includes from grade R to grade 12. Other sources might exclude grade R. Other sources might exclude grade 10, 11, 12, but this document, the Schools Act, includes grade R to grade 12 when it uses the word basic education. I also like to show the example of parent because often we have a way of understanding a word in our everyday speech, but the law might either expand that definition, adding something we don't normally include, or it might exclude something that we would normally include. So here, it says a parent is the biological or adoptive parent or the legal guardian of a learner, or the person legally person legally entitled to custody of a learner, or the person who undertakes to fulfill the obligations of a person referred to in paragraphs A and B towards the learner's education. So when a child, for example, lives with their grandparents, so we had that question in our mentee, and the grandparent said to the parents, you know, you live far, you work hard every day, you don't have time for the children, let me look after your child, I will take them to school, I will make sure that they go through school, I will handle all the school stuff. That grandparent undertook to fulfill the obligations of the parent towards the child's education. And in that case, when the Schools Act says or uses the word parent, the parent must represent the learner if there's a disciplinary hearing. The parent may be on the governing body. The parent may vote in the governing body election. The parent is responsible to bring the child to school and ensure that the child attends school. Parent would then include the grandparent with whom the child stays, or an older sister, or an aunt, or an uncle, or whoever it is. Okay, so definitions are also important. Then as I scroll through this document, you will see there's little paragraphs, and the paragraphs are numbered. You see that. We have little numbers. Some of them are in brackets, some of them are not. And there's also a little bit of an indent for some. So besides being structured around themes in chapters, the law also structures little paragraphs around themes and around smaller little topics. And these are called sections. So in this case, let me just make it slightly smaller so that we can see the entire section. For example, here you see there would be a bold number and heading, which gives us the topic of this section. Underneath that, you have your paragraphs. So the entire section 4A is everything that I have highlighted there on the screen. It has subparagraphs. So this whole thing is called a section. And I'm going to refer to it as level 1. Then the sections have subparagraphs, and we call them subsections. So this section has a subsection 1, which is that paragraph. It has a subsection 2. It has a subsection 3, and it has a subsection 4. So this would be level 2. Some of the sections also have subsections, so even subparagraphs underneath the subparagraphs, like here, for example. So we have section 5, which is all about the admission, all about the admission to public schools is section 5. Then it has subsection 1, subsection 1A, subsection 1B, subsection 2, and underneath subsection 3, you see there's also some subparagraphs, an A, a B, and a C, a small A, B, and C. And these are called subsections. So we have a section, we have subsections, and then we have subsections. This would be level 3. There can also be a level 4 and a level 5, subsections, and even more. So there would be also Roman letters, and sometimes there's even then a double A, a double B, a double C. So you will see that as you read through the Schools Act. Okay, so when I cite a section, I'm going to use blocks for us to help us to build our citation. So you are always going to include the name of the document. You are always going to include the number and the year of the document, your red block and your orange block. And now I'm adding the yellow block for a section number. So I can say section 5, in this case, section 5 of the South African Schools Act 85 of 1996. And that will be my reference to section 5 of this act. So we are going to do a question where you are first going to just quote a document's title, and then we are also going to add sections. So when I refer to a section, let me just find a shorter one because some of them, these have so many different subsections. Okay, let's take this one, curriculum and assessment. Okay, so when I work with a section, if I want to refer to all of this entire main paragraph, the level 1, I just use the whole number. I'm just going to say section 6, capital letter A in this case. So the bold little number. And I write it without brackets, just as it is there. When I want to refer to a smaller little section, let's say I want to refer to only this little paragraph, I then need to indicate the subsection number in my yellow block. So my yellow block is now going to look like a 6A bracket to close bracket. So I will add each level of subsection, subsection. Each level will have its own little set of brackets. So the entire section will just be 6 capital A. This little paragraph will be 6 capital A, bracket to close bracket. And that will be what I write for my yellow block, my section number. But then I might want to refer to this little piece there. And this is a level 3 because you can see there it is a section, a subsection, and a subsection. So now I will write my 6 capital A, bracket, 1, close bracket, bracket B, close bracket. And then I am referencing this highlighted little paragraph. Okay, and every time we have another level, we add another set of brackets for our yellow block in our citation. Also important to know is that when we are working with the levels of subsections, sub-subsections, and sub-sub-subsections, I like to refer to them as parents and babies. And we do not separate our parents and our babies from one another because then we are not going to understand the family. So in this case, if I read a national process and procedures for the assessment of learner achievement, if I just write that down, my reader has no clue what I am referring to. What are you talking about? A national process and procedures for the assessment of learner achievement. I don't know what it's talking about because I'm separating the baby. No, I need to keep the baby and the parent together. So I'm going back to the parent. So this is the parent, and this parent has 2 little babies. And if I want to understand the babies, I need to also first read with the parent. So I'm going to read it like this. The minister must, by notice in the Government Gazette, determine a national curriculum statement indicating the minimum outcomes or standards. Okay. And then I'm going to read again. The minister must, by notice in the Government Gazette, determine a national process and procedure for the assessment of learner achievement. So you can see that each of the subsections completes the original parent sentence. So this is a sentence up until there, and again, it's a sentence with this piece plus this one. So we read them together, the babies and the parents. But then also we need to know that families sometimes have one parent, but sometimes families have more than one parent. If there's more than one parent in a family, there will be a cross-reference. So this example here, the minister may, in writing, appoint a person, an organization, or a group of persons to advise him or her in regard to the determination contemplated in subsection 1. So clearly, if you just read this is one parent. But now we are missing the other parent. So the other parent is cross-referenced. To understand subsection 3, I need to go back to subsection 1 and read subsection 1. So if it says the minister may appoint someone to advise them on determining what? Determining the national curriculum statement and determining a national process for assessment. That is what subsection 3 is talking about. So separating them will make us not understand what it's all about. But if we keep the mommies, the parents and the babies together, we understand the babies. And if we keep the different parents, we go back to what is cross-referenced, go and check what that says so that we can understand the context of what this specific section is talking about. Okay, let us go to the questions that I have for you. And we're going to do a little bit of an exercise using our blocks and using the law. Starting off with your first 2 blocks, red and orange. I'm going to ask you a question. I have 3 questions on the next slide. We're going to do 1 together and the other 2 you are going to do at home for homework later on today or during the week when you have time. Okay, so you are going to answer the question by giving me a reference to an act. You are going to include the document title, your red block, and the number and year, your orange block. You are going to write it like this: the South African Schools Act 84 of 1996, or whatever act you are going to write. It won't always be the South African Schools Act, there's different acts. Okay, so please then answer for me this first question, number 1, using your short title. So you have to locate, you have to derive which act are we talking about, locate the act, find the short title, and write in the chat of the meeting for me the short title. Don't cheat, don't copy someone else's, and don't ask ChatGPT or any other AI. You must do this yourself so that you can get the practice, so that you can learn to walk the tight road. Okay. M van der Marwe, C.L. Sabui, John, Lala, Precious, Zodwa, Lana, all of them are correct so far. If you are done, you can do number 2 while we wait for the others to complete number 1. Okay, so the answers I see in the chat, they look good. Employment of Educators Act 76 of 1998. So you are going to write it like this: Employment of Educators Act number 76 of 1998. Please note that there's 3 ways to write it, and all 3 ways are correct. You can write number 76 of 1998, or you can leave it out, just write 76 of 1998, also correct. Or you can say Act 76 of 1998, also correct. So either any one of those 3 are correct. So we would say in terms of the South African schools, so I also have the 2 others. If you will please do them after class or later in this week when you make time. And then I'm going to do the next one. So we are now again going to add a section number. So I'm going to ask you 3 legal questions, and I want you to answer the legal questions in a full sentence. And your full sentence must be grammatically correct, so it must make sense in terms of sentence structure, and your full sentence must include your 3 first blocks: the document title, the number and the year, and the section number. We are not working with subsections in these questions. These 3 questions are we only refer to the main section number, level 1. So I'm going to give you the 3 questions, and as fast as you can, find the answers and type the answer for me in the meeting chat, including the reference with the first 3 blocks. Document title, so you're going to include the short title of your act and a section number. So we can do it in different ways. We can say according to, or in terms of, or this and this act says in this section, or states in this section that. Different ways. All of them will be correct so long as your sentence structure makes sense. The flow of the sentence must flow nicely. Okay, so let's see how you do with adding a section number to your reference of your document. Remember, you must write a sentence. Okay, yes, Children's Act was number 3, correct. So I have 3 questions. Which section in the Constitution protects your right to life? Number 2, which section in the Schools Act gives the school governing body the power to adopt a code of conduct for learners? Number 3, which section in the Employment of Educators Act outlines what constitutes serious misconduct for a teacher? Let us quickly look at the answer for question 1 together, and then you can continue with the other 2 questions on your own after class. So the correct answer would be section 11 of, and you don't write the Bill of Rights and you don't write the SA Constitution. You write Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996. So usually we would include the Act number, which in this case would be 108 of 1996. However, a couple of years ago, Parliament decided that because the Constitution is supreme and special, they don't want us to treat it like any other act, so we don't need to include the Act number for the Constitution. If you do it, it's not the end of the world, but we don't need to do it. We can just say 1996. Okay, so then you can continue on your own with question 2 and question 3. I will stay on for 5 more minutes, but if you need to leave, you are welcome to leave. I will stay on for 5 more minutes to see your answers in the chat on questions 2 and 3. Before you leave, if you're going to leave, I just want to inform you that for next week, please bring again the very same sources, and also for next week, be ready with your subordinate legislation. For next week, we are going to use all 6 of the blocks. We are going to include not only the sections, but also we are going to learn to quote them. We are going to interpret them, and we are going to apply them in short little scenarios. We are going to do simple scenarios first. We are also going to include subsections next week, and we are also going to include regulations and guidelines. So today we started off with the acts, but next week we are going to expand a little bit. So if you need to leave, you are welcome to leave. And thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for your participation. I hope that you have learned new skills today and that you will continue to practice them so that you will be very good at it. And I will see you again next week. I will stay on for another 5 minutes to for those who want to complete question 2 and 3 in the chat. And also, of course, if you want to ask a question, please raise a hand, go ahead, open your mic, ask a question. Tidi Mulitsane, you are welcome. You can go ahead. You just need to open your mic. Okay, change their mind. Okay, so remember to write a full sentence to answer the question and make sure that your sentence is grammatically correct. Sel Sibui, you are welcome to ask your question.
Ma'am, I just wanted to ask if the new textbook have a lot of changes or we can still use the...
Please don't use the old one. It's definitely outdated. Remember, the BILA Act was enacted in 2024, so there's been a lot of changes to not only the law, but also to the content of the book. There's been a lot of additions of new content and swapping around of content, and also not obviously updating the law with the new changes from the BILA Act. So you will, I will definitely not recommend using an old book. You might just end up answering the questions incorrectly based on incorrect information.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You are welcome. Own Kutu, you are welcome to ask your question.
Is the next week class still online or face to face?
Oh, I don't know. I'll check again on Tuesday what the venue looks like. Because yesterday when I was there, they still haven't put carpets. They are busy replacing the lecture desk in the front. They were still working on the projector. I suppose they're replacing that too. So unfortunately, the venue is not ready yet. But I will keep you updated. If you are free, let me just quickly check. There were about 70 people in this meeting. Yeah, see the venues the venues for Monday and Tuesday are available, but they are quite full. Monday is definitely full. Tuesday have a few spaces, but definitely not 70 spaces. Maybe there's about, I don't know, 30 spaces. Yeah. So if you really struggle with online and you want to attend, you might try to squirm into one of those. No, not one of those. Please don't come to the Monday session. It's full. You might try to squeeze in a face-to-face in on the Tuesday morning 11 at GO6, but let's hope they might finish GO5 this week, and next week we move on. So let's see how it goes. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, thank you.
I will keep you updated though as we go. All right. You are still welcome to continue in the chat to write your answers if you want to, or you can just write them down on paper. Guys, thank you for joining me. I will see you again next week. Hopefully in person, but let's see. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.